Aden, it was great to have you up here yesterday. I am proud of your attitude. I think you're turning around. I'm proud of the way you're going to fight with things. I've added Coach Deacon onto our coach now, so he's going to get this little review. So I thought I would just show him some of the things that you've done over the last little while to help your golf game and so that he has a little bit of an understanding as to where we're at and where we're trying to get to. So this was day one. We had, the low hands, kind of, let's call it, very, very posterior tilted posture. We had the golf club coming away, closed and way out in front of the hands, and extremely steep here and extremely closed, and a lot of elevation to, again, a kind of like a very elevated, closed, tilted type of position. And the only thing we can really do from there is to back out of it and fall underneath it. And that's when we saw that big drop, the right arm getting trapped underneath. You face really, for this pattern, very closed at this point. And that's really, I think that was pretty much day one, Aden, when we started. Now, when we, I know I'm flying through that one a little bit, Coach, just to kind of give you a little bit more of an idea about that one. But certainly from a point of view of looking at yesterday's golf swing, which was, this is pretty much as soon as Aden arrived in, you can clearly see what a good job he's done on his posture, his ability to, get the golf club moving, in a more rotational type of manner. You can see there with the improvement that he's made in his takeaway. The golf club's starting to set and go less vertical. It was almost going inverted before. It was, it's starting to set on a little bit of a better line. Again, less lifted and much less of that, big drop, although that big drop is still in evidence. We can see it holds its line on his arm a little bit more. And certainly from a point of view of looking at, various lines and exits and things, he's a lot better as you can imagine. Club face, for example, as he gets through there's some support to it. So we really started to look into some detail, on a point that we touched on before, which was the quality of his and the consistency of his bottom hand grip. Still within this pattern, I think with most young players, and Coach, I'm sure you'd agree that there's a tendency for them to get, swing a little bit from the inside. And as long as the club face itself then doesn't get, excessively close to the path, and you can see that club face really is looking like it's like a fader's club face within a drawer's pattern. And we then flipped this around and started to say, well, look, let's have a look and see what way, and I'll put the close-up I took outside of it. Let's see really what way this club is being held through that bottom hand. And I think, Aden, one of your tendencies is certainly to get around the bottom of the golf club, and it disables your right shoulder from working, and it certainly puts you in a position where not only is the club face going to fire closed, because you can see you return it into a very, let's say a very correct type of place, but if you can imagine, it started underneath the club and then it's worked into that position there. So the club face relative to where it is in your hand must be closed now. When we looked at it from the other side as well, what we noticed is that, and this is something I've, wanted to kind of get figured out over the last little while, is that, that club face, as you get into this area here, the club face is closed and the shaft still looks as if it sort of almost inverts on itself a little bit. And that's where I think a lot of your dropping and a lot of that underneath kind of movement comes from. So in terms of bringing the golf club into a better place in your hands, we talked about how important it was for the overlap in your case not to get too deep into the first and second fingers of your right hand. We talked about how important it was for you to keep some pressure, with the thumb pad of your right hand over the top of your left thumb, and ensure that there's none of that kind of falling underneath with that right hand grip. So as I bring these two in and get a little bit closer, you can see we've got a much more orthodox right hand grip position here on the right hand one, which is your after, rather than that right hand wanting to work in and underneath. And we're going to have a little look and just see what that does to your club face. Bring that to there. Bring that quickly to there, and we'll flip those over again. So we'll see what this does to your club face as we go back, which I think, is for you is really, really important to understand that, if we're going to get you out of this pattern, we can't have this kind of shut, club face going back. And the club face definitely started to soften a little bit. It wasn't just as closed. Didn't have that inverted look as you got it up towards the top of your backswing. And certainly the club face as you went in here towards delivery was in a much sort of softer, drawers pattern, and you had a different feeling through your right hand, as we talked about, to be able to hit, more of a fade shot as well. There were a couple of little check swings that you made here, which I'm just going to see if I can find them. Again, that was better. Let me see here. Okay, this was maybe a little rotated one. Yeah, club face rotated, and certainly then much more on top of it with a much softer club face. So I think if you can really focus on that right hand grip and coincided with, if you like, some of the other areas that we've talked about in your golf swing, which is, making sure that your takeaway remains nicely online. This was one of the little check swings, and Coach, this is probably a little bit overdone in terms of the fact that the club face really gets very soft and the shaft gets laid down a little bit. But because of the way Aden's shoulders work, and he's used to having that shaft so inverted and steep from there that he's used to then the club responding and dropping underneath him. We'll see that when he gets into and again this is exaggerated, but when he gets into that little bit more of a square to open face laid off position, it's facilitating the use of his shoulders, moving the club in a very different way. Let me see if I can find this one I'm looking for. It's one of these. Yeah, it's this one, I think. So when we look at what the golf club does now in terms of its response, you can see how it remains on the top of the right forearm and square, and that really is that little pressure fade sort of feeling, Aden, that you were able to kind of work with. So in an ideal world, I'm going to want to see that right hand grip. I'm sorry this has gone on a bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm going to want to see that right hand grip, similar to somebody like Rory McIlroy, whereby that that right hand's going to sit. Let me show you on top of the handle, something like that. So we've got that right hand really solid and sitting on top of the handle, and we're going to want to see the club face position. I mean, the club face positions are going to be important, and those sort of shaft positions for you also going to be very valuable. And if we're looking at a like a blueprint for it, if you like, these from the Open in 2000. I mean, these are great little examples of where we'd like to see the golf club there, and in particular where you've never quite, Aden, been able to nail it. Hands in the center of your chest, shaft of the club just towards that golf ball, just on the inside of it, if you like, and the face of the club pretty square from there. But again, that's going to then hold its structure as we change direction rather than falling in underneath you. And as I say, it's exciting times. You did a great job, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.